Hey guys, it's been 2 years since I moved back to Iran from the U.S. Kind of get wanted to give you an update in how life is, the challenges I faced. As I told you, with the family and everybody who moved with me, it is going to be challenging, especially with 4 children that are going to school. Number one, the school transition was very difficult. Going from a small community school to a larger, you know, boys only school that has a different teaching style, has a different communication style with different, obviously, a different, completely different language, which kids cannot read or write, is going to pose so many challenges. So obviously, I thought it would be easy, and yet it wasn't. The challenge was that the kids did not know the language. They were shocked. Everything was different. Even something like the bathrooms, as you know, obviously the bathrooms that has a seat and you sit on it, or you can find it anywhere, but the one that is found mostly in Iran is the one that you squat and you do your business. So what I thought would be an easy transition turned out to be very difficult. The children, I did not know how difficult it was for them. But, after the first week, I started seeing the signs of stress in their eyes, in their behavior, and the fact that they did not want to go to school. And the fact that, every time in the morning they would get stressed out. Sometimes, for a couple of times they had fever because of the amount of stress. So I wanted to take things into my own hand and, kind of play a more visible role in their school time and school activities. So what I did was I, started going to school, talking to the teacher, talking to the principal, and I started seeing what the problem was. Neither the teacher had experience dealing with a student like this, obviously, and the student did not know how to do it. Neither the classmate had seen anything like this. So I started telling, the teacher about my, basically the way that would be effective in dealing with my children. And to be honest with you, the teachers were very cooperative. Whatever I told them, they were willing to try it. And to be honest with you, it worked because I knew my children. I knew that my children would not be effective if you scared them into, punishing them, detention, all of that. They needed encouragement. They needed encouragement that they needed to hear that they are able to do this, that they will survive, that they will be able to ace it. And this is what happened. The teachers just started encouraging them instead of trying to scare them, which is the typical behavior in the traditional schools, that they try to scare the children. They try to scare them. They try to intimidate them. They try to, tell them, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. This is the bad things that are going to happen to them. But did not work for my children. And I told them that this is not going to work for my children. They need encouragement. They need to believe in themselves. It's a new environment. Obviously, they don't lack the intelligence. They are just, shocked. They are just not ready to face it. So the teachers took my advice, kind of applied it. One of the teachers, which really did a good job, she was basically took it to a whole new level. Gave new responsibilities to my son, and he was able to become something, do something for the class at the end of the day. I don't know, distribute something to his classmates. And after a while, I started seeing really positive changes in my son, in my daughter, in my elder son. One of the good things was that my children were, not all of them, but my younger son was very vocal about his not liking the school. If he did not voice it, I would not have known it. And being able to voice your concern to being able to, pull it out of his mouth that, he does not like it, is not going well for him. It worked. So a number of factors worked here, being, first of all, understanding that it's not going well for the children. Talking to the teacher, teacher being able to cooperate, being able to take your advice, not just go off the traditions of, what they know is the right way to do it. Sometimes you have to take a detour in, what the traditional education sense is. And they did. And obviously, after 6 months passed, and my son, who was struggling the most, because he was the one that kind of was most vulnerable, he started doing really well at school. He started making friends, and I would say it's still not 100%. They haven't adapted to the environment 100%, but they have done a good job. They have come a long way, where playing soccer with his classmates, making friends. I always think, look back at the Karate Kid. How this child from the U.S. went to China, he was struggling with, and I played that movie for my children a couple of times to kind of get an idea that it's normal to feel isolated. It's normal to feel like out of place because you are coming from a different country. And, it took a while. It took some time. And, after a while, they got used to it. They did well at school. Some time passed, for the summer, they weren't here. They went back to the US to visit family. The war happened. And when the war happened, they came back. I felt like all the progress we made was kind of undone. All of it was undone because they went back to the U.S. They started, hanging out with, speaking in English, hanging out with the peers. Again, when the school opened the next year, I felt like, a lot of, things were undone. A lot of progress that we made was undone. I kind of regretted that, but we had no choice. They had to go back to visit family. New school, again, we had to move. So they had to go to another new school. So for me, I started, adapting to the life here. I still do not have a 9-to-5 job that, I can, call it, a steady income. But the thing is that I'm working on different things. I take projects from different people. If they want an app, they want to, do some software work. My goal is to, start teaching and I like teaching. My passion is teaching. If I can, start an institution or a place that I can gather people, kind of create a small class where I can teach my findings, my skills, that would be ideal. The the wars that happened was also a challenge. We had two wars in 1 year, one kind of a riot thing in January. All of it was uh, to be honest with you, very challenging. When things get disrupted, I didn't have internet for each of those sessions. Like in last summer, 2025, when Israel attacked Iran, internet went out for a couple of months. I whatever I do is with internet. So if there's no internet, obviously there is a national internet, but many things you're not able to do. Again, in January there was this rioting in the streets, and the internet went out. They cut the internet connection, and then in February Trump attacked Iran without any pretext. That was another thing that disrupted the whole life here. One of the things that did happen was the fact that everybody thought Iranian is going to flee the country. So even like the government of Turkey closed the land borders between Iran and Turkey. They closed the land border, but then after a few days they realized nobody's fleeing Iran. On the contrary, people are coming back. There were a number of people who were living in Europe at the time, and then they decided to come back to Iran because of the war. So it was unique in that sense because, in Syria, look at what happened in Syria, civil war. Hundreds of thousands of people fled the country. They went to Turkey, they went to Lebanon, they went to Iraq, some to Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. Anytime the war happens, there's a huge displacement. But in Iran, during the war that Trump started, it didn't happen. There is a sense of resilience among the people that, helped them to stay put. They stick around and they kind of fought through this tough times. And right now, life is back to normal for a lot of people. Still, obviously there's trauma. There are people who lost lives, lost family members and all of that. But overall, a lot of people have, come back to this normal life. Things are operating business as usual. For me, and my children with me, we're staying in Tehran. Obviously, a lot of heavy bombardment in Tehran. Well, it was challenging, yeah, for the least. Children were scared in the beginning. They did really well. I did not, expect them to be so calm when they heard some bombing here and there. Mashallah, they did well. And that's it. That's my update. Take care. See you.